Hello, everyone. Welcome to CryoNews. I'm your host, Haley Cryokeen. This is my co-host, Cyprian.
Hello.
And we have a very super duper amazing special guest for you today, Corin Nemec of Parker Lewis Can't Lose, StarGate Sg-1. He was on Supernatural. I think 4 episodes. And just amazing. Hello, how are you today?
I'm doing good, doing good. It's nice to meet the two of you, and congratulations on this startup for your new podcast that you're putting together here and all that. I'm happy to be a part of it. Thank you for reaching out.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Let's see, what do we got here? How are you, co-host? Any interesting life events going on with you recently that you would like to discuss?
Oh, I'm newly married to a wonderful woman, Sabrina, now named Nemec,
Congratulations.
and yeah, she's absolutely lovely. There's some wedding pictures there for you all to see. That was our wedding day, and that said, that's been a wonderful change, a much welcomed change, and it comes with a whole new turning of the page in life, and a blank canvas to create on. So it's very exciting.
Very cool. Very cool. I have not been married myself, so she probably knows more what you're talking about than me because special someone quite yet, but one of these days.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Um, so if you don't mind, where did you grow up, or what were your first 10 years from childhood to 20, or however much you want to share? Now, I know that you kind of did a lot. So, however much.
No, I get it. Yeah, for
Share.
sure. Well, I was born I was born in Little Rock, Arkansas, at St. Vincent's Hospital in the early '70s, and my mom and dad were both at the University of Arkansas. My mom was in the graphic designs program, and my dad was in the architectural program, and so both myself and my sister grew up on campus for our first, my sister for her first, I guess 2 or 3 years or so, my first couple of years, until both of them finished their studies there. But I actually do, have some recollections of campus, even at that young of an age, 2 or 3, which is strange. My mom always trips out at some of the stuff that I'm able to remember. But the first time that I ever actually ended up in any type of news article or news clipping, I was too young to remember this, mind you, but my mom still has the newspaper clipping, but was in the campus newspaper when they had started their child care program for the students on campus with kids, which was relatively new at the time, and I ended up as the kid that was on the cover of the newspaper for so that was my first brush with fame, as it were. But having both my parents artists, I never had any pushback growing up in terms of being an artist. So I was allowed a lot of creative freedom to kind of figure out what I was good at, what I was interested in, what I was passionate about. And and I think that a lot of times that's not so much afforded to many people, because the reality of survival for most parents is so acute and significant that dare their children think outside the box should they ever have to meet with poverty down the road.
Yeah.
So this survival mechanism that we all live with, it actually works against the creative mind, and sometimes I think the system is rigged that way. But that said, because I was allowed that and didn't have to really fight for it. You know, a lot of artists literally have to fight for it, and they end up with that rebellious chip on their shoulder, or that pained artist, you know, all the turmoil and you know, and difficulty they had to go through to be an artist, to express themselves. And you know, I didn't really have to have any of that.
You got a loving, supporting family that encouraged you to be an artist.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, and even when I would get in trouble at school for drawing instead of doing my schoolwork and all of that,
Mhm.
yeah, that trouble or that frustration that my teachers had didn't equal frustration with my mother. You know, because my mom and dad split up shortly after college, when I was raised primarily by my mother and my sister. But she went on to work in the music and theater business as a graphic designer in Atlanta, Georgia. So I grew up in Atlanta up until the mid '80s, where she worked with Standing Room Only, which was a huge promotional company. They did all the big acts, like, you know, back in the day, like Hall and Oates and the Commodores and Jay Giles Band and Asia and you know, Hall and Oates. I know we went and saw Joan Jett and the Blackhearts at one point, and you know, all this stuff. So, and she went on to work with the Nederlanders at the Fox Theater in Atlanta, doing design for their graphic design department for all the posters and everything, which is eventually what led to me living in Los Angeles. But that said, my sister and I both used to go to a lot of the rock concerts and a lot of then eventually the plays and the musicals, and we would get to go backstage and kind of see what was going on backstage. And in the meantime, on the opposite coast, my dad had ended up um, in a architectural firm in Little Rock, and had done some great design work. He was quite a genius, is a genius, and was, you
Mhm.
know, really, you know, on the spectrum level, especially for architectural design,
Mhm.
and his aptitude for being able to deliver incredible work at in very quick time, and appropriately done so that it can actually be built, you know. But with that
That's very
said, he ended up moving to Los Angeles with some partners, and they started a firm out there, and they did some design work, and eventually ended up through social circles being introduced to the set design world and production design and film and television. And that really sparked his interest, because it allowed him to be able to design outside the you know, the spectrum of what was needed and wanted in the commercial real estate world. And where he could have continued in that world and been very successful, he became very successful in film and television as a production designer, and earlier on as an art director and assistant art director. I mean, he worked on the movie Goonies, and the movie The Abyss, and Terminator 2, and Patriot Games, and The Saint, The Shadow, Twister. I mean, it goes on and on and on, and he's still working to this day. So my sister and I would travel from Atlanta to Los Angeles to see my dad in the summertime, and we would end up on, you know, seeing what was going on set, what was going on behind the scenes, what that world was like. And um and and again, you know, I mean, you know, I was afforded myself and my sister were afforded really a lot of latitude to kind of figure out for ourselves who we were. I mean, I think that the biggest blockade both my sister and I most likely had to navigate through growing up was borderline poverty, you know, as my mom was trying to make it as an artist, and then outside of that was really the cultural stigmas of what it is to be an artist, or be successful as an artist, or be taken seriously as an artist, in a world that's really compartmentalized in such a way that if you even think artistically in a class, even about a subject, maybe, you know, let's say, because I used to like to draw a lot in my classes, and so when I would get reports and stuff, I'd want to draw pictures in the report
Yeah.
more than I want to write about
Yeah.
it, you
Yeah.
know. But I'd be getting graded on my writing. They'd be, yeah, great drawing, but you know, you didn't do say this, or this, and you know, and it's whatever. but I understood what the studies were and whatnot. And anyway, make a long story short, my mom ended up transferring to the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles from the Fox Theater in Atlanta, and my sister and I moved out to LA with her, and that's where my dad was already living. And shortly after landing in North Hollywood, California, where we were living, and I was starting school, I ended up in my own graphic design class at Walter Reed Junior High School in Studio City. They had a graphic design class as an elective, and so of course I took it. And in my class was a young actor named David Van Gorder. And mind you, this is in eighth grade. I'm 11 or 12 years old or whatever it is, and so he was well known at that time for a famous Van Halen music video, "Hot for Teacher," and he played the character Waldo in this music video, and it was about this nerdy kid who had the hots for his teacher, and it was a Van Halen song, whatever. And it was like the biggest hit song of the mid '80s, and music video on MTV and whatnot, and so he was very well known at the time. And I expressed to him that I was interested in acting because I was really provoked to want to become an actor at a young age because of my dad's work on The Goonies. And
Yeah.
I understood how much fun those kids were having on set, running around doing all the slides and pretending to be these characters and all, and going on this adventure. And to me, that just sounded, right up my alley. And I got into an acting class that he was in, called Center Stage LA, that was directed by Kevin McDermott. It was a very, very well respected children's acting workshop, and I shortly thereafter, within less than a year, did a showcase in front of agents and managers, and signed with an agency called Abrams, Rubaloff and Lawrence, and immediately started auditioning. I mean, the first audition I went on was a Suzuki motorcycle commercial that aired during the 1986 Super Bowl, that was casted by Paul Ventura Casting. He casted me in a bunch of commercials, but he cast me in that. It was a really big deal. It was a big commercial.
We're in a Super Bowl commercial.
It was a yeah. So it was my very first audition. I got the job. The commercial was a big deal. It wasn't
Yeah.
like, so that was pretty cool. And shortly thereafter, within less than a year of that commercial, I was cast as Noble Tucker in the movie, Tucker, Man in His Dream, playing Jeff Bridges' son, the movie that Francis Ford Coppola directed.
Oh,
And that was in the mid '80s there. So when I got back from doing that job, from a career standpoint, I was taken far more seriously as an actor. I was auditioning for bigger roles, and I progressed from there to ending up doing I Know My First Name is Steven, which got me an Emmy nomination. The Emmy nomination really secured me as a legitimate serious actor in Hollywood.
mm,
Within a number of years of that, I started working on Parker Lewis Can't Lose, which was a big series on Fox in the
yeah.
early '90s. And then from there, went on to do a number of studio pictures in the mid '90s. Also the miniseries The Stand.
Harold. Harold. What the hell are you doing? Don't screw with my disco, Nadine.
Some of those studio pictures were Drop Zone and Operation Dumbo Drop, and several others, several other ones. But then thereafter, going all the way through the '90s into the early 2000s, leading right up to StarGate, and being a series regular on StarGate, playing Jonas, Quinn, and not only that, but I mean doing loads of surprise guest spots on
Yeah,
on
your
like
IMDb
every
so full.
NCIS, CSI
We're
thing you
at
can
the
think of, and small popping up on
You produced
Smallville.
NCIS and CSI Miami. You watch those shows. I mean, one episode each, I
I've been
think.
in almost all of them at least once. And then doing a reoccurring character on Supernatural,
Yeah, that was very cool.
uh, and uh, and from there, I started really focusing a lot more on writing, producing.
Yeah.
I was a producer and star in a lot of these sci-fi original movies before they discontinued those, which was a lot of fun actually. But
Yeah.
produced with some good friends of mine out in Hollywood, Stan Spry and the Cartel, and we did. Dragon Wasps and Dracano, and sand sharks, and a number of really ridiculous sci-fi, kind of comedies in a way.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun, and I ended up doing a bunch of Lifetime channel movies with those same companies
Yeah.
throughout the next decade. And from there, I also just recently I have a movie that just came out that I co-wrote with Brian Skiba, who's a very good friend of mine and a very talented director, called Dead Man's Hand.
Yeah.
And that's available to rent or buy now. It's a Western. It's starring Stephen Dorff and Cole Hauser and Jack Kilmer. I co-wrote that with him.
Okay.
And then I have another film that will be coming out later, hopefully later this year, early next year, called Place of Bones with Heather Graham
Mm.
and Tom Hopper, which is a Western, a very dark kind of thriller, which I'm very excited about, and a film also called Joe Baby with Harvey Keitel and Ron Perlman and Deacon Lockman, and that's going to be a very cool project. A lot of stuff coming out, and stuff that I'm also writing and producing now. Even in the throes of the business being shut down,
Yeah.
it's not going to stop my creativity.
Well, wow.
That was quite a lot.
No, that's was beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
That you answered my question. So you, timing. So before I go to the next couple questions, is it okay I ask you a few Stargate questions?
Yeah, of course.
So that's where I primarily know you from. And then after seeing you on Stargate, I'd see you like in these random other shows, just like popping up, and I'm like, oh, it's cool. It's Corin. It's Jonas, Jonas Quinn.
Yeah.
But then then I wouldn't see you again most of the time. But it was great though. It was really nice to just see you, I I- you know, I really admire that you were able to jump on that acting bandwagon, at a point that I guess it's like anything in life, right? You take one step, you take another step, you take another step, and then there you go. The Stargate questions. I guess I don't want to get too nerdy, but two of the things that I did want to ask you in particular about is in one episode, you go underwater.
Jonas.
You hold your breath or something like that, and you're
Yeah.
like trying to like repair or something, if I recall. And I just thought it was a really cool scene, and I wanted maybe you could expand a little bit if you remember what acting like that was like, and they make you wear breathing apparatuses and stuff. And
Yeah. That was a really, really cool sequence. The way that they did that was they're out on the UBC campus, the University of British Columbia. They have a huge wave pool for their ship design department and all of that, where they can test model ships in extreme conditions. It's a really just a huge pool. I don't know if it's the size of an Olympic pool, but it's damn close, and the whole entire pool has got to be at least 12 to 16 feet deep or so. Probably maybe more than that. It might have been 20 feet deep. I don't know. It was very, very deep.
cool.
And what they did, I don't know if they drained the pool first, but they had these two gigantic hydraulic lifts down in the base of the pool, and they had a full section of the spaceship built, 3/4 of it built on top of these lifts that could go, all the way up out of the water. So I know it had to be really deep because the lifts themselves, even when they were fully down, were like 8 feet tall. These lifts were huge. I don't even know how they got them in the pool. I mean, they may not have been that tall, but that's how I recall. So with that, and then another 12 feet, it had to be, like 20 feet deep. It was amazing. So the whole set would be completely out of the water, and they could adjust the lift so one side so it could tilt down and one side could kind of go down at an angle or whatever. So when we're on the set, as the ship starts to fill with water, what's actually happening is the hydraulic lift is lowering down into the pool. And with the camera locked off, with that motion,
Right.
it looks like it's filling up with water. Yeah. So so that sequence actually, I mean, I held my breath for like 1 minute 48 seconds when we did the sequence. They had to cut the sequence short because of that. But we only had to do one take of it because I did everything just right, exactly as they needed. Gave them more than enough footage. Was down there, didn't panic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Handled it like a pro.
Nice,
Uh,
nice.
and uh, and that to me, that particular set was really rad. That they did some incredible set builds on season 6
Mm.
of Stargate. That in particular one was very impressive. The Antarctic base set that they built was incredible. They did a full interior and partial exterior. Well, I mean, a partial exterior big enough to be able to pull up on a snowmobile. You know what I mean? Outside, and they had the fake Arctic, setting, all of that, and they had the big blue screen so they could project the rest of it, and you could go from outside in the Arctic down through the entrance and then into the interior. I mean, it was just, and they even brought in gigantic industrial air conditioners and brought the temperature down to 30 something degrees so they could see our breath, and that's the attention to detail that they went to. So the working on Stargate was just an incredible adventure. Though every single time I was on set was a new and interesting adventure to go on.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
What was the other one?
The other Stargate one, yeah.
The other Stargate question. So that was Jonas goes for a swim. That's what the YouTube video is called.
Yeah.
And the other one is Jonas gets psychic powers. I thought that episode was also pretty interesting because it dealt with if we see the future, can we prevent it or change it? And from what I recall in the episode, many times you were not able to change it, or you trying to change it ended up causing the thing. But then at the very end, you made a slight change and you saved everybody,
Yeah.
So, it's amazing stuff.
Yeah. I thought, the storylines that they wrote, the writing team there, Joe Malozzi and Brad Wright and the whole team over there, the great directors that they have. There was no way that they weren't going to be delivering really interesting, fascinating storylines. I mean, it's been a while since I've watched many of the episodes, so even I forget some of the cool adventures that the character got to go on and that I got to participate in as an actor. But in recollection, the arc that they allowed the character to take, I think for me as an actor was definitely a fun adventure, even though the character was cut rather short, and in my opinion. But I think that at least the arc of the character up until he was no longer seen again in the Stargate universe was a compelling and and memorable arc.
I think so too. I'm sorry, my cat is my third co-host, and he's insisting on making an appearance.
Of course, they have to.
Here you go, Boots.
There you are. Look at that. What a snuggle face.
You're not paying attention to me 24 hours, a day.
Oh, we have a corgi that's pretty much the same. I forced him on a walk on a hot afternoon. He's been dead all afternoon ever since. So
yeah, I let him go outside. I mean, I'm surprised when he comes back because my last two cats didn't end up coming back after letting him outside for a little bit. But he's a survivor, and he's brought us many presents, many, dead mice.
Mostly dead.
Mostly dead. Mostly dead. It only really upsets me mostly when either they're not dead or it's birds. I really like the birds, so I feel bad when he brings back birds. Come on, Boots.
Ah, what a sweetheart. Love him. Look at those beautiful almond eyes.
He's a good boy. Okay, I guess so have you always been an artist or a creative person? I believe you've answered that question.
Yes, mate.
Do you have any spiritual beliefs, self-help advice that you give yourself, or personal philosophies that drive you, that make you go forward? Share as little or as much as you want.
Yeah, honestly, for me, yes, I do definitely. And for me, the hardest part is I want to exist in the aesthetic band. The aesthetic wavelength is my preferred state of mind, and and being forced into the mechanistic world and having to deal with everyday ordinary issues and problems like everybody does. It's not, I'm not, it's not like I'm a special snowflake, but just, these types of things that bring me, back into the world of the mechanistic. It's just like I have desired so much in my life to simplify, 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 so that I have the least amount of crap that I got to deal with. Because it gets me having to live in those two different worlds for me. It really, really puts me in a bad mood at times. I just get very, very cranky about it, and and that's fine, but for me that goes into the spiritual side of it, because the aesthetic band, the creative band, is spiritual. That creative energy is spiritual energy. If you're dealing in the creative, then you're dealing in the spiritual. They're the same thing, in my opinion. So what my beliefs in terms of that is that it's senior for me, especially as an actor who plays a lot of different roles and different characters, to be able to take on the mask and leave the mask behind when I'm done with that role, especially playing darker characters like Ted Bundy, who I had to play, or Richard Speck in Chicago Massacre, who was a mass murderer in the 1960s, or some of the other darker roles. There's been numerous of them over the years. But that said, I don't observe any type of method acting, and don't utilize sense memory and emotional recall. And I like to keep my personality as much as possible, some type of blank canvas. I mean, I have, and that's the struggle with me personally, from a spiritual perspective to an ego self, is some kind of self that identifies with my name, with my career, with what it is that I've succeeded or accomplished or failed at in life, how I was brought up, what my religious upbringing may or may not have been, how I was taught in school. All of these different things create a complex personality that once believed in it. Once I mean, I have to speak for myself, but once I become only that, then I become all of the problems and all of the difficulties and all of the memories and everything else that's associated with that. When as a spiritual being who's conscious of everything that I do have, that personality construct is something that I have.
Okay.
And at times when the pressure's on, I become that again, and I have to fight my way back out of it, and try and keep myself in a place where I'm detached in just enough to remain sane in a world that I don't feel that I fit that well into psychically. um and so, yeah, so that said, it's from a spiritual perspective, I have to constantly remind myself, and try to live as the being. And the being has no place in time. That takes up no space. The universe moves through it. It doesn't move through the universe. It has it basically connects to the brain and the meat body like a radio antenna, like a radio receiver from source. And that pure creative energy, going through the universe, which even in modern theoretical physics is proving God particle theories and, the intelligent universe design theory. These are the latest theories now. When they went from chaos theory and, from nothing to something, now they're coming full circle, and they're going back. Pretty soon the earth is going to be flat the way they're going. It's like, my point is that they're going back in time to a point when the ancients of our planet already knew that the universe was intelligent in design, and that we could tap into that intelligence. The Hindus understood the Akashic record, which is a bandwidth of information that is recorded all throughout time and projected into the future, all potential futures. And anybody with any aptitude can tap into the Akashic record and can glean information and creative thought and potential and all of that from it. It helps us solve problems. It's where people become inspired to figure out how to start a fire when they don't know how to start a fire without a match, and no one's ever taught them, and they just got to figure it out for themselves. That's where that all comes from. So I think that for me, the healthiest way that I can continue living my life is to deepen my detachment from that personality complex, and to allow it to exist as one of my characters do in the past, and hopefully not pick it up, anymore, and to be able to just kind of be a free flowing being, as much as possible, and then be able to adopt all the new characters that I play in the future, and to be able to be remain creative in what it is that I'm trying to accomplish in life, in my career, without becoming too stressed out or egotistical about it.
Humble is good.
Can I ask you, is that a rug
Where?
on the
My
floor?
head? Oh, no, this is actually tile.
Tile.
It's tile.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a tile. Yeah. My wife picked all of this out, and she has very good taste. It's a beautiful space.
It is. So small caveat. I have the free version of Zoom, and it's warning me we only have 6 minutes and 20 seconds left or something.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, because we're about to go to a concert, So if we want to wrap it up with like the last couple of questions, then we can do this again down the road, see how this goes, and we can come back and revisit.
That'd be great. All right. Well, then, I guess my last question, and then maybe she can pop off a few, would just be, briefly, what are your thoughts on artificial intelligence, and how obviously it's probably a big thing with the is it called AFTA strike?
Oh, the SAG after strike, and
Yeah. So just real quick, what are your thoughts on those two?
Well, obviously there's a huge concern when it comes to AI and all that. I'd say even more so for extras and background actors, because they can be so easily digitally replaced. So for that whole group of actors, it's a death sentence. They can create entire crowd scenes. So for actors, I don't know what's going to happen. I think in terms of what happens on set, when you don't have all the realistic feeling of all the background actors and that whole world and everything else, I can tell you it becomes very stale. I don't like it as an idea creatively. I'm more concerned with AI as it pertains to culture and society and the future of humanity and technology. Unrestrained AI operating within our systems it's a death sentence for the future of the internet. It makes me really think that somebody very quickly needs to create an alternative system, whether it's using radio frequency technologies, just like you use with walkie talkies and all of that. You can use that same exact technology for cell phones and not even have to be on these systems. They just don't use it. But there's other ways that we could get off of that system and still run our lives in the technological way that we're used to. But if the system goes down, if the system corrupts, if everything goes, I mean, you have to realize we'll be back in the Middle Ages within days. within days, we'll be back in the Middle Ages, and it's a quite a frightening thought.
I agree. Lots of potential dangers. We got to take this stuff very seriously when we can.
Yeah.
You have some questions?
You want to talk any about the actor strike?
I mean, I understand what the point is. I get it. I think that there's other ways of going about getting your results without necessarily having to shut down an entire industry.
Mhm.
I think that unions in general, although I do support and promote unionization in many respects, the unions themselves can become so bloated that the hierarchy of the union is making decisions for a whole entire group of people that don't really have necessarily their immediate best interests in mind, and because they think they have their long-term best interests in mind, it's okay to ruin their lives now. You know what I'm saying? And most people don't ever recover from that. They move back home, they leave town, they quit, they become something else, they start selling cars, they just can't survive it. And whether that's a controlled demolition of the industry, I don't know, but I do know that the platforms that count numbers, that don't show the numbers of views and won't reveal the numbers of views or how many people are actually watching the shows worldwide and are shifting all of their finances around to cover their losses with profits from other shows. And those kind of things certainly need to be sussed out, but those can be also sussed out individually with individual contracts with shows. And if there's holdouts from the producers and all of that on individual shows, or they go to platforms that will negotiate an open platform, an open accounting type of thing, then those platforms will explode and blow up and do great. They'll just have to share more of their ad rev. So it makes no sense why they're choosing this route when there's certainly other routes. And I think that that savvy producers are going to be able to start making deals direct with these companies. With the actors in mind, being able to negotiate better contracts for them, but they have to be willing to give up some of their share. But I think that independently, you can match all the needs and wants of the unions and make all of those deals and structure those contracts and be up and running in production. But you're just going to have to spread that pie out.
Yeah, it's a complex issue, and
Yeah.
both sides have. Well, thank you, man. Thank you so much for being
bet,
here.
brother.
Here, real quick, I just want to thank my Patreons. Santa Fox, Jimbo, Willis, Pip-Boy, Dr. Pugas.
Love you guys.
All right.
Love you guys. And yeah, let's do this. See how it turns out. Let's see how it runs, and let's get back and do this again.
I'd love to try it again.
God bless both of you.
Namaste.
Nice
Bless.
to meet you.
Namaste. Pleasure to meet you both.